Bookworms, welcome to the Weekend Readers Book Club. Thank you for joining us. In this episode, we're discussing the book that came second in the sci-fi category at the Goodreads 2024 Goodreads Book Awards. We are discussing The Family Experiment by John Marrs. Now, The Family Experiment by John Marrs is a sci-fi book taken sometime in the future where humans live in the real world, but we also use VR. In VR, you create your own avatars and then have basically a second life outside the normal life that you live in the real world. In the Family Experiment, 11 contestants have 9 months to raise a child from 0 to 18. It's a game show, and basically, we follow 5 couples and 1 single parent as they receive their VR child as a newborn, and every month the child ages, and slowly, bit by bit, the competition gets dwindled down till we get to the final 2 families, and then you can choose whether to keep your child in VR and live the life with them in the VR world, or kill them off, take the money, and use the money in the real world. So I have just finished The Family Experiment by John Marrs, and this is my review of the book. Okay, first off, this book was absolutely amazing. From the first couple of chapters, I could not put this down, and whenever I did, I wanted to go back and read it. This was 1,000,000 times better than the last book that we read that won the sci-fi category. This had a lot of sci-fi aspects. Well, what I resonate with sci-fi aspects to it. From the get-go, you were engrossed with the stories. You learnt about the 5 couples and the 1 solo parent, their background and what they're trying to do and their reasonings behind getting into the competition. And the storyline is just bonkers, but bonkers crazy good. The other aspect of the book also touches on, like, the first chapter hits with a bang, right? And it then looks at humanity's role if we were to adapt VR in our real lives. What rights do VR people have in comparison to humans? Because the more humans use the VR, especially when you say in this experiment where you're raising a child from 0 to 18, they become your family, right? And are there rights or non-rights in comparison to a VR child or person compared to a real-world person? It's really intriguing, and it just makes you sit there and wonder and go, damn, is this what the future may be like to a degree? It was an awesome read. As I said, the contestants were all different. They had interesting backstories and interesting reasons to get into the competition. In addition to that, a lot of their backstories flowed into the competition itself, where we were experiencing real-world situations with these VR children, and the contestants or parents are basically in VR land experiencing this, but still has the escapism to, turn off the headset and come back to the real world. But you've got a competition aspect of it too, because this becomes like the world's biggest TV show, so everybody's tuning in to watch it, and you're not wanting to take your headset off. You're wanting to stay in VR as much as you can because you got, that fame and fortune and the clout and the whatever. It's just a really mind-boggling book, and it was so much fun to read. So the question will be, will The Family Experiment be going on to my bookshelf? The answer is yes, it is. This is a library book, so I need to return the library book and go out and purchase the real book, because holy crap, this was a lot of fun to read. Now, I will say this. Now, The Family Experiment by John Marrs is actually book 3 of a series. Now, the books are connected in a way that they're in the same universe, per se, but I don't believe the characters are. So, with this book, it did make mention of the Marriage Act, which is a book which is written by John Mars, which is the second book in this series. And then it also made mention of Your DNA Match, which is from The One, which is a John Mars book as well. I believe it's a Netflix series as well now. But The One, The Family Experiment, and also The Marriage Act are in a universe of its own per se. All three are related in the same universe. So that's just thought you may want to start with The One. If you're going to read it, go One, Marriage Act, and The Family Experiment. But I'll start with The Family Experiment because of the awards it won. I'm potentially going to read a couple of more John Mars books, hopefully shortly. So yeah, we'll be picking those up as we go along. So, as of customs here in the Weekend Readers Book Club, as one book closes, another has to open. It is now time to find out what the next read for the Weekend Readers Book Club is. And Bookworms, we can confirm, we're going back to an author that we've read before, that I finally got my hands on a copy of the book that I'm wanting to read. We're reading Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. Now, Fight Club, my mate at work had it, and he was like, do you want to read it? And I was like, yes please, because I haven't been able to find Fight Club at all the book fairs that I go to, or my book guy Brian, when he looks for me too, shout out Brian, he hasn't been able to find it yet either. But Fight Club, Chuck Palahniuk, you are the next read. I'm excited. Like everybody says it's like the movie. I can't really remember the movies, but I'm excited to read it. So you are the next read for the Weekend Readers Book Club. So Bookworms, that was my review and conversation on the book, The Family Experiment by John Mars, a book that I absolutely love, a book that has made me a John Mars fan, a book that is actually going onto my bookshelf. I'm potentially going to be reading now The Passengers by John Mars, and then I also do want to actually read The Marriage Act and The One, but I might read The Marriage Act first and then The One last in that to mark off the trilogy. But in saying that, happy, good, interesting, mind-boggling, makes you think, awesome read The Family Experiment by John Mars was. So, until next time, Bookworms, thank you again for joining us, and happy reading.